mention this, and my teaching philosophy also, I'm just another disclaimer here, is that students always have to come first. I really get annoyed when I see, some of the tendencies to, we're all excited about this new technology, let's implement it, and inevitably we end up losing some students, just like this previous session lost me for about 10 minutes because I couldn't figure out how to turn on the iPad. And so I'm just, again, disclaimers that I want to show you what I found to work. I'm so not an expert. And if you have questions or want to stop me at any point, feel free. Sakai, or courses, what is powered by Sakai, or I still tend to call Sakai, is absolutely amazing for logistical details. It's not something I'm going to use up in front of the classroom very much. Occasionally, it is great for organization. It is great for communication. I couldn't teach my course without it. The course I teach that I'm specifically going to talk about, and I use Sakai for everything I do. The student, Phi Alpha Theta, which I advise, the little classes I teach, the big classes I teach, everything. But the class I want to talk to you about now, I'm just going to demonstrate, is Humanities 313, Western Culture 3, required Gen Ed, 200 students or so a semester, I think 198 now, 210 last semester. And what it lets me do is organize things, keep track of 200 plus students, and communicate with them in ways that, just frankly, if I were trying to do it all one-on-one, wouldn't work. I know some people are concerned this whole, technology emphasis depersonalizes or impersonalizes us. I've found that, quite frankly, with a class that big, the tendency is to be impersonal, to not know students' names, to not have one-on-one interaction. On here, I can. It's really easy, if I'm grading their assignment, to write them a personal comment, to have back and forths. When they do come up to me in class and introduce themselves, I'm able to say, oh, you're the one that did this, and it's made it a very pleasant experience 90% of the time. I also have 3 TAs, which is also a logistical nightmare when you're trying to, we have 3 writing assignments, plus we have quizzes, plus we have exams. You don't know who's going to grade it. I'm trying to keep, my TAs aren't in my field, which is a different headache. Doesn't have anything to do with this. So I'm never, we need to keep track of, what they're doing. Are we all on the same page? I think everything in one place has made that possible. And in course evaluations, one thing the students said they really liked was the way I used Sakai. So that was my impetus for wanting to show you some of this. I just want to pull up the course. You guys, I'm guessing, how many of you do use it now? Okay, so it's not like this is brand new. I don't need to show you everything. I just want to show you some things that I've found to work especially well. So this is my class, Humanities 313. Can you all see? I know the, okay, I'll assume you can. I know the font size is a little small for projecting. I don't use it when I teach in Elkins. I don't try to project from it. The thing that I'm most proud of when I use it, and that students seem to like best, is that I have a course outline right immediately when they pull up the Sakai. This is what some people would call a syllabus. I call it a course outline. It's an HTML file. Links to all of the readings, links to the assignments, links to, what else are there, study guides. I do use a lot of, web stuff. Later on in the course, they're going to get to YouTube videos that I'll link to and ask them to, watch it before class. But, for example, they had a paper due a couple of days ago. Pull up the course outline, they see it, click on it, and here is an actual PDF file explaining the entire assignment. That has worked remarkably well. Another thing I just wanted to point out, they've got a map quiz. Okay, this is a Western culture class. I want them to know geography of Europe. Pull that up. It's just all right there. The only handout I ever give in class is the syllabus the very first day. Everything else is on here. Saves paper, saves hassle. I never have to worry about them saying they lost it, they couldn't find it. It's always there. Where am I going here? Just quick to point out, you've got the option of announcements on the right-hand side. Quite frankly, and I don't know if there are any representatives here of the Sakai team or the organization that hosts it, I would actually like to get rid of that altogether and have the entire screen be my course outline. That's not an option at this point. Pepperdine's got an amazing Sakai team that may implement that at some point. We can't do that now. I'm using it for announcements. Don't forget the map quiz tomorrow. I changed the reading here. And a couple of links that I just keep always up there that if they need to remember where to look for lecture outlines, they can click there. Oop. That'll end up a Word file, I guess. Couple other things I use. Well, let's see. You know what a syllabus is. You know what the roster is. Resources. Absolutely everything that would be a handout in another class I have here. I also use this as my e-reserves. And I've kind of gone back and forth with the library e-reserves people on this because I know there are copyright issues. But this is, quite frankly, for me, it's been so much faster. The system works faster. It's a matter of it opens up in something like 3 seconds as opposed to 30 seconds of logging in here and logging in here and entering a password. What I've found worked is I've talked to them. I've figured out what the copyright rules are. Sometimes I'll even ask them to put it up on e-reserves also. But I know that if it's up and it's only accessible to my students, it's legal. And that was sort of a little bit of an issue is it legal for me to be photocopying a chapter of a book that I want them to read or something like that. Whenever I have a question about that, I go to the library e-reserves, but I don't actually use them very much other than as a reference. Assignments, all the assignments are submitted online. So I have 3 papers, and then they have the option of submitting some extra credit. You can see right now that 79 students have actually submitted a paper already. Let's see. Let's see if I can put this in student view so you can actually see what the students get when they go there. So this is what they'll see. They'll realize from the course outline that there's a paper due. They can click on the course outline to go to the actual instructions for it. Supposed to submit it here. They get to, they open it up. I have a few instructions right there. I did experiment one semester with putting the entire instructions right in this little section on Sakai. That was a total headache. It was hard for students to print it out. It was hard to format. Students wouldn't see it. So I still use my PDF file that explains, the entire, the handout with the instructions, but it's linked right there. Absolutely. You can create links from everything to everything on here, and that has saved me in so many ways. Sure. Oh, yeah, good point. I'll get to that, yeah. No, that's a good point. You haven't, okay. No, I think that's important because actually part of the reason I'm doing this was hearing from students how other professors have, I don't want to pick on anyone, but how sometimes it's been confusing the way other professors have used it and where students get confused. And they've come to me and said, Professor so-and-so did this, so I'm kind of like, I want to show you what I found that works. Not that it's, great, I've just used this on about 1,000 students in the last 3-4 semesters, so I'm getting some of the kinks out. Yeah, I'll show you that right now. So now that I've got 79 submissions, I can go directly to grade. And yes, when you have 200 students on Sakai, it can be a little slow. I apologize for that. That's one of the things that the Sakai team is working on. This is slower than I expected. But it's unfortunately a normal, because the class size is this big. If you were doing it with 20 students, it wouldn't take this long to open. There you go. I've got all of the students in the class. It's still going. All 200 and some, or it shows 200 at a time. I can, I'll look at Jasmine's, open up grade. open up her document. Read it online. The options now for how to grade it, there are actually several options. And I did want to point this out to you. What I've found worked, and this is just me being a little bit me, I've actually created a grading rubric that I cut and paste into the instructor comments box. And I cut and paste that in at the beginning of the semester. So my TAs and I are all using the same grading rubric. And I actually have a real detailed rubric that I give to my TAs and to the students of exactly what they need to do for how many points. That's just, you know, because this is for grading essays. And so I will, you know, okay, I'll read it. And, well, actually, let me pull up one that I've already done. So this is from last semester's assignments. Grade their response papers. Now watch, it's going to take another few minutes to open up. So quiet, you can talk. Especially while the computer is connecting. Yeah.
So is there a way to paste that rubric in?
Not yet. Not yet. That's one of the things I've been on the Sakai pilot team, and I've worked closely with Mark Ignoni and Alan Regan, and you know, one of the neat things about Sakai is that it's shareware, and the various campuses that use it can make updates and make changes. That's one of the things they sort of have on their list as desirable, but not functioning yet. I take an hour at the beginning of the semester and just, you know, turn on the TV and cut and paste, cut and paste. Let's see. All right, since these are real students from last semester, let me find someone who did a good job so I'm not, like, going to embarrass anyone. Sure, Kareem got an A. So there we go. My TA Blaine graded it. He got 30 out of 30 on the top category, 30 out of 30 on the second. You know, whatever. This was a little different of a grading rubric that semester. And comments. I don't, because I have a class of 200. When I teach a class of 20, I absolutely do. And that was something I was going to show you. This works for me because it's such a large class. One option I would have had, if I wanted to do that, and this is something I love doing when I have assignments with, you know, multiple drafts or specific comments, I could mark up their paper, save it, and then here, add attachments. And they would get it back. I've had mixed results with that. Students don't always know where to look for it, and I've had students not be able to open it. And actually, I'm going to get to that on my little list of the things the mistakes I've made and the things I've found to work. Some sort of tricks to get around that, but it works. It's a great option. Oh, save and release to students versus save and don't release. Working with TAs or drafts works great. So I'll tell my TAs when we're meeting up tomorrow to grade these 79 essays or to grade the first however many of them. I'm going to have them grade some, save them but not release it to the students, and then the team, all four of us, are going to open them up, look at them together. Do we agree on this grade? Are these comments too harsh? And then when we all agree, save and release to students. Obviously later on in the semester I won't have to do that, but since these are brand new TAs this semester, they've never worked with me before, that's a really nice option to have. Gradebook. Well, actually, let me show you the gradebook for this semester. I'm still on last semester's now. I have it set up so it does all my grade calculations for me, and if you need specific instructions on how to set it up that way, I'm happy to show you. I'm not going to do that in front of everyone. But for example, my 3 exams are worth 15% of the course each, total of 45%. That's in there. It calculates the extra credit, the map quizzes, the papers. Participation grade. Yes, honestly, in a class this size, I do grade on participation. Every 2 or 3 days, there will be some sort of in-class exercise, group exercise, pop quiz. Something where they can get some points for that. And they never know when it's going to be, so they're not added in there yet. But if I have something one day, I'll add in a new category and give them points for it or not. That's worth 10% of their grade. And to show you from last semester what that actually looks like when it's completed, I actually see here, the class average on the final exam was 90 out of 100. I was happy about that. Midterms were a little bit lower. And I can pull up the midterms. This is dangerous. Some of you are going to know the students in there and see their grades. Yeah, that's, the midterms I don't do on the computer. Paper midterm, TAs and I grade them. We enter the grades here. And I can actually put comments. Okay, here was a student who got an F or got a D. Please come and see me about this. Or, I'll put a note, absent, has permission to take the exam later, whatever. This is what I see. What a student will see at this point. Let's go with Kareem because he was a good student. Shouldn't be anything embarrassing. What he sees when he pulls up his grades is his course grade up here in the corner, whatever it's averaged to be at this point in the course. And then, okay, on his final he got a 93, on his midterm he got an 86. And I could put comments in this column. In fact, I did in a couple of places. Is there anything about this? I know I feel like this is a little bit boring. I hate just talking at people, but this is the easiest way to show you without taking forever. Okay, sure. The library has you can work through their circ desk. I think Andrew Main, they're the librarian in charge of that. And if you send them PDF files or even, an article, they'll scan it for you and put it on reserves under your name. The students can then, you give them the link to it and a password, and they can access it. That's a way of, it's nice if you want to use a lot of articles without having, photocopied them and handing them out. Like in a class my size, I'm not going to hand out 220-page articles. What, the e-reserves at the library? Oh, they're great. They'll do it real quickly. They're really willing to work with you. You give it to them, they'll have it up and running in a day or two. The problem I've had with it is that my computer at home was a little slower, internet connection. I'll click on it, then you got to log in, then you got to wait. It's 60 seconds before it actually comes up, 40 seconds, whereas doing it this way, it comes up within 5 seconds. I'm not complaining about them. They are absolutely wonderful. I highly recommend it. Either way. Let me just show you, let's see, I'm looking in the instructor view again. A couple of cool things I've had fun with. Statistics, I can actually see how many visits, what activities they're doing on there. Are they opening up the assignments? Are they opening up the grade book? Who's the most active user? Oh, well, I am, but that kind of makes sense, I guess. 100% of them have visited the site. If I look for this semester, that's what I should have actually pulled up and looked up, not the syllabus, looked at the statistics. You will notice, and I have 11 students who haven't visited the site yet. Notice that I actually can click on it and I know who they are. And if they failed their quiz or didn't turn in their first assignment, they're probably going to get a note from me saying, if they come up with this, oh, well, I was busy, I can say, no, you didn't even look online to see that it was due yet. That's just kind of fun. They don't know that I'm spying on them. They're all really impressed. How did she know that I hadn't even gone online to download the study guide? Announcements, that goes directly to, you can set that up so that it goes to the entire class. Let me actually check something here. If you go to site info, I believe there's an email tool. Where is it? And I don't use it, so I have it disabled. Is it edit tools? That's email sent to the site, whereas messages. Yeah, so okay, that was actually something I was going to get to say. There are a ton of really fun tools, some of which I've used, some of which I don't. I'm more likely to experiment with them in a smaller class. With this large class, I think one semester I tried discussion forums. One semester I did try emailing back and forth using a Dropbox. It just got too complicated. But actually, let me try. I haven't actually tried the emailing directly from the site. Messages. Sure. Or one individually. I think I did this one semester, and for me, I just found it's no better than opening up my Outlook or whatever, but it's an option. Yeah. Mhm. Mhm. That absolutely depends on what you do. And okay, now I'm getting ahead of myself, but let me point this out. If you use track changes to save comments, then you need to save them in whatever format you want to so that they get it. And I found PDF works best. If you save it as a PDF file, everything shows up exactly like it was. Then you actually attach it, and they'll see it with all your changes on it, or with all your messages on it. Yeah. Right. Right. It's not automatic. And I'll mention this now. This is something I had on my little list of mistakes I've made, and I've seen other people make. A lot of students, I think it's so easy to use track changes or to use, the comment feature on Word. And then I find out that I have a 10% of the class that doesn't actually use Word. They use some, shareware that opens Word documents but doesn't have all the same features. Or they're on a Mac and it doesn't have, docx, doesn't use docx files or whatever. I've just always used PDF at this point. Save to PDF or print as PDF and attach it. That's why all my handouts, just about everything is PDF at this point. That would be something I would like to see work better, but that's still in developmental stages. On the gradebook, one thing that I'm just going to point out and show you, I guess it doesn't make sense to open up the midterm since we haven't had it yet, but I use it for myself and my TAs as much as for the students. If a student emails me and says, I'm going to be gone this day, can I have permission to make it up, I'll just put a note right there. And my TAs and I know that if the student isn't there that day, that's why, and they have permission and they're not losing points. Or if they're taking a disability services or whatever I need to know for myself. That's been a big help rather than trying to look for emails or have post-it notes to myself all over everywhere. Again, it's just because it's a class this big. What was I going to show you? Oh, under assignments. Have you guys all used Turnitin? That's real easy through the assignments. If I return to the list. So I can actually see their Turnitin score right here if there's any chance of plagiarism, that kind of thing. Let me move on. I think I've actually demonstrated the main things that I do on here, but I want to go over my little handout. Again, I am such a Luddite. I didn't make a PowerPoint presentation because I want to be able to show you and talk about it at the same time. And I actually do use an overhead projector in one of my classes when I want to have that option. PLC, they had to go and get an overhead just for me this semester. But just some of the things that I've learned, and please jump in. Keep it simple, stupid. You've all heard that. But I started out in fall of '09 when I first got here, and I wanted to do everything. I wanted to try everything. I had a Dropbox. I had a calendar. I can't remember, a couple of other things. Let's just say it didn't work. Students would submit their papers in the Dropbox rather than under assignments. Dropbox is a really cool thing. It allows you to exchange work with students. That didn't work with 200 students, because I would never know where to look for their work. And the same thing with the emailing and the calendar. I've just decided that didn't work for me. Tell students, and tell them again, and tell them again, and tell them again if you're going to make changes through the semester. I again, this was a couple of years ago, I thought, wow, this is so great, and I can be flexible. If I find something new that I want to add midway through the semester, I just add it right in. You know, I can change the dates around or add in a new reading, and that's just wonderful. I don't even have to tell the students. It's just automatically changed right there. The number of them that print this out the first day of class and never look at it again is a little bit horrifying to me. As someone who is like glued to my laptop, and what I've actually realized is that so many of them use smartphones that it's inconvenient for them to pull up a full screen like this. They would rather honestly have the paper, and they really do print it out and miss the updates unless I tell them to go look for them. Same reason, create pages that are as easy to use printed out as they are online. Case in point would be my study guides for map quizzes. I put them up, and I never even bothered to print them out. I looked at them online, and you know, they came up full screen, and all the colors were there, and it was easy to read. And my students were all complaining about these horrible study guides. I could not figure it out. It took me 3 semesters to figure out. They were printing it, and so it was, you know, about half the size that I was seeing it, and the colors weren't coming up, and so the fonts were too small. This one actually was completely revised. I took out all of the fonts and, you know, put them in a bigger size. So I haven't gotten that complaint this semester. But again, I just hadn't realized how many students don't do everything online. Just because I have a computer in front of me everywhere I go, that doesn't mean they do. Remind students over and over and over and over where to look for feedback on their work. Are you using the Dropbox? Are you putting comments in the assignments? Okay, so are you going to actually be using the, you know, the box that I created where I have my little grading rubric? Obviously, you don't need to use the grading rubric. But if you're going to use that, tell them that, because they won't know to look there. And as a little hint, I found if I create it in color, that's a big help. Because when they pull it up on their screen, can I do a student view? No, I can't do a student view from here. But when they pull it up on their screen, there's a bunch of gobbledygook at the top, a bunch at the bottom, and they won't notice that there are personal comments for me in the middle unless there's something there to make it stand out. Again, I think that's a glitch in Sakai, and I've talked to the Sakai team, and that may change. But for now, that's what I do. It's working. If you're going to attach something, again, tell them that. True story here, and it was with a colleague in my division. I'm in humanities, teaches a writing intensive course, and a student came to me one day at the end of the semester, just so angry. She said, I can't believe I have this course with, you know, Professor so-and-so. She's supposedly teaching writing, and she has not given me comments on one of my writing assignments all semester. You know, and this was a writing intensive class, and I just looked at her. I said, you know, sweetheart, I don't believe that. I know these are teachers who are really good. And she just plain didn't know that every single time there had been an attachment added with, you know, detailed comments in the margins, the track changes and everything. I was horrified when I realized that. But frankly, the same thing happens with me, or has happened, well, still happens with me with the students that don't pay attention. They don't realize that there are, in fact, personal comments there. Just tell them over and over and over. I think the one thing that finally got it across to them was when I had a course, like a mid-semester course evaluation, and one of the questions on it is, how helpful are the personal comments on your papers? And a good, you know, quarter of the class, I didn't know there were personal comments on the papers. So again, I can't emphasize that enough. I mentioned already PDF files or HTML are much easier for students to use than Doc or DocX. The same particular student I was talking about, I actually sat down with her and I said, come on, we're going to open up your teacher's Sakai site and look for the feedback. And then she got them and she just immediately saw it and it's like, oh gosh, those are DocX. I can't open that. And you know, she had a Mac and it was an old Mac and she was using some other program and I was trying to help her. Well, if you use this conversion tool, and it took her a good 10 minutes to get it open. And you know, I don't blame her that she's not necessarily going to, well, I do blame her. It was her fault. I'm not taking responsibility or anything for it, but I get it. I'm empathetic. Remind students, and remind them lots of times, that when an assignment is submitted correctly, they're going to get an email confirmation. That's another kind of problem with Sakai, I would have to say, is that it's not real obvious. It's real easy to, you attach the file, and then you hit confirm, and then you hit submit, or maybe you hit submit and then confirm. But if you don't go through that multiple stages, it'll be attached but not actually submitted. And every semester I get 10 students or something that come to me at the very end, why did I get a 0 on that assignment? Well, you never submitted it. Yeah, I did. And then I always say, well, show me the email. Oh. I will say, because they all tell me, oh, well, it was Sakai's problem. It was Sakai's fault that it didn't accept it. I submitted it. It has never once been a Sakai problem. It has always been a student error problem with that. But just remind them of that. Keep Sakai up to date. This is something I had trouble with probably my first semester, because I would tell students things in class. I would promise a student that they could have an extension on an assignment, or that I'd, make a change in the schedule, or whatever it was. Again, I was new. I was still trying to figure things out. But then I wouldn't update it online, and I wouldn't remember what I would have told them. They wouldn't remember. And I'd have to have half the students doing it one way, half the other. But this has been an absolute lifesaver, because everyone can access it. It says the same thing for everyone. I mean, it's obvious, but just a little tip mistake I've made. When linking from Sakai, and I use these links all the time. Everything links to everything else. Set it so that it opens up in a new tab or a new window. So you'll notice when I linked from, they're reading the Declaration of Independence, it opened up in a new tab. If it doesn't do that, it'll, first of all, it'll take you out of courses, or here, it'll, try to open up in this little, third of a screen. And I've made that mistake. So just a little tip, learn from my mistakes rather than having to do it multiple times yourself. Oh, and here's one that I feel really strong about. For some students, using this will be difficult. I know I say that to my colleagues, and they laugh at me. They're like, all these students are, Facebook savvy and, webcam and all that. What do you mean this is difficult? Honest, for a good, say, 5% of the students here, this is not going to be obvious. It's easy for me. I kind of, I like doing this kind of thing. Especially students with certain learning disabilities. It does take a lot of steps that they have to remember. And I had one student my first semester write on his course evaluation and tell me in person. He said, I want you to know the reason I got a D in your class was because you were using Sakai. And this was actually quite a good student, and we're still in touch, and, I absolutely believe him. I've since then had other students tell me that. And I will, if I see a student that's struggling, I don't want Sakai to hinder their learning. I've started to be really, really lenient. If a student can't figure out how to upload things on Sakai, rather than belittling them, and I did that at first, I was like, come on, you know how to do this, whatever. I'll just tell them, come into my office and we're going to do it together. And they will, and it works. One student once I've actually let turn in hard copies of his work. This was a student who I think failed the class the first semester, and the second semester he was really trying to get his act together. And I thought, he ended up with an A- in the class. I didn't want the fact that he had learning disabilities and was really struggling with technology to end up hurting the learning, and how he learns the material and the grade. Another student would come into my office anytime there was going to be a quiz or a test coming up and ask me to print out the study guide. It seems a little bit silly. I agree. I've just decided for that 1 or 2 students every semester out of 200, if this had been 3 years ago, I would have printed out study guides for the entire class. And I know it's his fault that he, couldn't quite get his act together to go over to the library and print it, but it's worth it for me. I don't want my Sakai use to end up, hurting a student's grade because I refused to print, didn't print it out, and then they went home and they didn't have a printer and that kind of thing. So I've learned to be pretty lenient on an individual basis, and it's always maybe 2 students a semester out of 200. See, we have about 4 minutes. I'm going to just, do you guys have questions? I'm still talking, and I talk fast. So interrupt me if you'd like. Yeah. Oh, any link that I have here, I have set up so it'll automatically open up. And that's something you do in the HTML program that you're using. Okay, actually, that is a good point. And that's, I think, something I have on my list of, my list here, you'll see that. I have actually found there is, if you go into resources, you can actually, where is it? Okay, somewhere there's a way, now you're going to see I don't do this, so I've never tried. There is actually a way of creating an HTML document right from here using their built-in HTML editor. Is it add? Create HTML page. This is a really, really clunky HTML editor, so I actually don't use it very often. But it is, yeah, and if you do that, I think it actually is set to automatically create links that open up elsewhere. When I'm using, I will often just use what I'm familiar with or whatever I have available. But then I have to remember to do that. So. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So I've had trouble using this, so I've done minimal, but yeah. Ask. What's your name? Ask her.
The other option is you have a document just uploaded to resources, so it's not out on the internet. You can just have browse over button, and that'll let you. Oh, well, it's in the window, so if you see the link. So let's say you have a document in pictures, like we've got PDFs here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we want to link one of these instead.
Oh, yeah.
Go back to the add HTML.
Go back to add HTML?
Yeah.
Okay, so create an HTML page?
So let's say, yes.
Oh, I see what you're doing, yeah.
You're typing
Mm-hmm.
right now you want to link to one of those PDFs. If you click on that link button that we just clicked on before, you can paste in the URL, or you can use that browse server button that you see there.
Oh, sure.
And that will let you browse and see something and click on it that way. So you don't have to paste in the URL.
She's good to know, because quite frankly, I have done that, but I always go back and just plain get the URL of the file and then cut and paste it in. I was going to point that out. So. Okay, there's a trick. I'm going to have to start doing that because, quite frankly, I hadn't done it that way. I don't know why. I think I had a bad experience one time, and I've started doing it the long way. But what Nicola was just pointing out, if you go to a resource, edit details, you can actually go and select the entire URL and then paste it as a link into anything. So I'll paste it into the assignment, paste it into the syllabus, paste it into the announcements. Yeah, I paste it into all three places. The announcement then gets sent out over email, and the students click the link in their email, and it takes them right to the document that I'm referring to. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh. I have my assignments up since the very beginning of the semester. I mean, that's just... I have experimented with that, and as of this semester, there is no closing because I've always found there are those, yeah. That's something that I've tried that, and then there would be those that either thought it was submitted and it wasn't, and then they'd be unable to submit it because it was closed, or the ones that had legitimate excuses. I had a student who drove off Malibu Canyon and broke her neck, and honestly finished the class, but everything was turned in late. I mean, I was really impressed, but it was just a headache to have to go and change everything, and I've decided I won't close assignments at all at this point.
So there's a difference between the assignment due date and the close date or the track date, right? So that's a little window, right there, window, and students don't know about the close date or the track date. They only know the due date. So you can set it up such that it's after the due date, when people accept it and they get submitted, and it will be months late, and then you can decide if you want to document it or not. So we have a lot of instructors who set the actual close date at the end of the semester. So students can always submit, but they see the due date, they know when
I think the time is pretty much up. So you can, I mean, making an instructor-friendly site, the tricks I've learned are actually some really detailed, specific things that I've found. You can look at that. Feel free to contact me if you have questions. The other thing I do want to point out is save and save often. And I don't know if this is a Sakai thing or my computer or my internet connection. There's nothing more obnoxious than entering 100 grades and then having the screen refresh. And, you know, so save a lot. But yeah, it's worked out really great, and I hope it works out for you all as well. Thank you for coming. Thank you for you.